Welcome. Welcome to Monday with Sue here on YouTube. I hope you're well, and wherever you are and whatever you're doing, I hope that life is treating you well. And if not, why not? And that's part of my talk today. I'm a coach. I have all sorts of different qualifications. I have diploma in mental health issues, suicide prevention, courses of why do you say yes when you want to say no? Youre consultant for anyone who wants to lose weight with a coach. Because, of course, it's not just about losing weight. Never is about just losing weight. It's about why you eat when you're not hungry. Boundaries and so many, many more things. I've written 3 books. I'll just hold them up in a few minutes. That's the one thing you can do when it's your live. You can actually let people know what you do. And for the first few minutes, I'm going to talk about myself in relationship to what I can offer and put to you why you would want to maybe come along in my journey for a while. I am 76 years of age in this body, forever young in this heart, and the soul, which is, in my understanding, unconditional love, energy that we received when we came to this earth plane. My soul is unconditional love. The way I live my life is to be there and support myself and other people. And then to learn about our programming, why we do what we do. And if it's not working for you, then let's change it, because you have choices. We all have choices. And, I wish someone had told me 30, 40 years ago that I would have choices. Because you see, and now this is the experience of Sue, I hope you'll listen, because it might just ring a bell of truth for you. I'm Sue. My page on Facebook, YouTube is Sue's University of Life. I'm Sue and it's our life. So you're automatically included. So if you're going to be with me, my show's an hour, different topics along the way. And if you want to ask me any questions at all, and you're happy for me to just share, because obviously there are lots of followers, people who watch this on replay, and on YouTube, people wander around and think, oh, what's she got to say, what he's got to say. See, I think you are absolutely fantastic. I think you have no concept of how amazing you are. And as I talk about my experiences, most of them come from life. And so qualifications on life, I have, the whole room is decorated with them. And from our life lessons, everything we do, we learn from. And if we don't, then we'll repeat the same behavior. We are not our behavior. I am delighted to tell you that. You're not how you behave. Your behavior is made up of different sections of survival within you in the human condition. So I hope that if you've listened so far, that you're going to give yourself an hour. Not give me an hour. Give yourself an hour. And you don't have to be watching me. You can maybe use me as like you would the radio, somebody who's giving a talk and hopes that there's 1 or 2 things that you will have some food for thought. The one thing I do say to anybody is journal. And if you think to yourself straight away, oh, I hate journaling. Is that true? Or is that just something you've told yourself for so long that you've never really asked about it? So journaling, for me, some people keep a diary. A journal would be for, I'd put the time, the date, the year, It would be a reference book for me if I was trying to resolve some issue. And as someone who has been a coach for 20 odd years, someone who's supported thousands and thousands and lots more in slimming, and someone who's supported people with addictions and referred on to specialists if it's not in my capabilities. Most of what I do is I listen. You wouldn't know it on here, of course, because all I'm doing is talking the whole time. And if you want to pop on and just leave a comment, you know, that's reassuring. It's wonderful. And I talk as though there is no one else there other than someone who wants to listen. Nothing's asked of you. If you want to put a comment, that's great. And so I do this live as though I'm talking to one person, and that person is you. And as we're having this hour together, already going quite quickly, then give yourself time. And what I mean by time is to reassess where you're up to in life. If this is not for you, then I wish you well. And if it's not for you, then be courteous and kind. Don't rubbish what I know. Don't believe anything I say. I want you to look inside and find out for yourself. What I'd like to do is encourage you, if you're stuck in a certain position in life, whether it's in a relationship with somebody in your family, siblings, your parents, uncles, aunts, if you're stuck in a job that you really don't like and you've told yourself, well, you've got to go because you need the money, and you have settled for that. If your relationship with the weather is, if it's wet, it's going to be a miserable day. Relationships and your relationship with yourself is the most important of all. And your spiritual journey, I call it soul. The soul, unconditional, loving energy we were all born with. So it's a huge area that I cover. And I'm always happy to share things, as I do when you send me emails or private messages. My website, which I'll put down before I go here, my website, I'm delighted to say I have a website which has been running for years, and it's www.seusuniversityoflifenz. So my website is a welcome from me. Subscribe and ring the bell. That would be great, because we people who do this work just because we can, of course, the more people that are interested, the more people that follow, the more people then that we can, a wider audience. And there might be one person, by you sharing a live, that might just hear something that I'm saying. Like, are you lonely? Are you stuck at home? Are you stuck in the aging process? Do you worry until you think, this is driving me mad? And do you think, well, I'm a worrier and that's it? Do you settle for that? Because that isn't it. This is because we've learned to act a certain way. And what we've learned is that we either feel not good enough, we want to please people, we don't want to be a nuisance, and that's all coming from the inner child, within us, the inner child. I've been doing inner child work for decades. The inner child is the programming when we learned how to survive as we made progress on this earth and became 5, 6, 7. There are times when we made a decision because somebody outside of us, an adult, told us something, and we believed that they were right. And we've gone through life never questioning so many things. And I suggest if you start questioning things, you're going to be very, very excited, because all of a sudden, it's the most amazing feeling when you realize that you're not your thought processes. You're not that voice in your head that never stops talking 24/7. You can actually watch, in other words, observe your mind. How cool is that? So I can sit here and I can observe my mind. And because I do meditation, and I've wanted to understand myself from absolute rock bottom when I had a nervous breakdown in way back in the 1990s. And when you realize that what you're saying to yourself is, in fact, most of it is a lie. So if I believe that you're better than me and that what you think is more important than me, and I believe that because somebody told me a long time ago, then whatever you say, I'm going to put myself down as I'm wrong. Now, we treat ourselves in such a way that we punish ourselves, and we don't believe we matter. Now, if that's you, and if you've got inside of your programming, there are certain feelings that just tickety-boo tick along, especially if you have something called irrational guilt, irrational fear, and a feeling of inferiority or insecurity. So whatever conversation you're having with your mindset, your programming, and like I say, just watch it. And I'll show you, I'll sit here and I'll tell you what my mind wants me to believe. And I will tell you the absolute dot for dot what my mind, that if I feel insecure, is telling me. So I'm sat here, I'm in the moment, I'm aware, I'm doing a live. There may or may not be people listening, because there's no evidence to prove that anyone's listening. Because if you're listening, that is absolutely your choice. If you would put a message and say hi, then I know someone's listening. So into quarter of an hour of my live, Monday with Sue, every Monday, New Zealand time, I could now, and I'm going to go into my thinking, watch my mind now telling me, because I've gone with it. You see, nobody cares. Nobody can be bothered to listen. What I've got to say, well, it's rubbish. Why would anybody want to listen to this? And proof that you're not good enough. So that's just a little bit of the chatter that I used to live my life in 24/7 as soon as something threatened me. On the outside, I always look after how I look. I've always wanted to look nice for myself, and certainly for other people, because I needed approval, or I needed people to like me. I was a people pleaser. And so all of these things I learned to do in order to survive and feel as though I mattered. So that process, I'm going to stay with that voice in my head at the moment. And we all have voices. We have the people pleaser, the person who doesn't want to be angry, the person who wants to be liked, roles that we play. And we play out roles in order to fit in. Now, if you have heard this all before, then I ask you to ask yourself a question. Who are you? Is your life working? Are you full of awareness, reality, choices that you can make anytime? Are you practical? Are you forward thinking? Or let's use the example of the weather. When you open the curtains or the blinds and it's raining, what does your voice say? Mine used to say, oh, another wet day. Oh, no. Straight into the negatives, the fear, Now, regardless of the weather, I can look out and I can see the beautiful sky. I can appreciate the fact that we all need the rain, and that some people in all parts of the world, they would welcome the rain. So then people say to me, oh, it's all right saying that, Sue. What about when it's been raining for days and days and days? I can use New Zealand's summer. It's almost the end of January. And January is normally an absolutely outstanding month of beautiful weather. Well, we've had horrendous means slating it down. Things have dropped from the cliff tops and there's been road closures. It's caused chaos. So there's been so many people that haven't been able to work and so on. And so I do know what it feels like to have rain upon rain. So stay with me on this. How does that affect most people? In my understanding, in my awareness, the sun feeds us. The sun feeds us with, the scientists give us names for vitamins, minerals, and so on. And so if we don't have the sun, then I can personally watch myself feeling quite low. This is after a lot of rain. I don't let it depress me because I've learned that's not the way to go. I won't suppress how I feel, which is, today it's dull out there. There's not much colour. The clouds are drifting quite quickly, and they're grey clouds, which suggests that whilst it's not raining at the moment, there might be more downpours. In England, there was a saying, it's black over Bill's mothers. It's black over Bill's mothers. Now, Bill's mother was somebody that you knew, and that was the direction where the clouds were coming, black. So it looks like it might rain. There's some great sayings. So yes, how am I experiencing today? Well, I've come away from the voice in my head that's trying to deprive me of this time sharing here on YouTube. And so I've just said to that, you don't get rid of it. Now, these are nuggets for each and every one of you. You don't get rid of that. You accept it. You accept the unacceptable. You accept it. Now you have choices. You don't have to feed into it. Hope this is making sense, and I hope to see some comments as time goes on over the next week. Because I talk about the human condition. There are many amazing experts that talk in different dimensions and different lifetimes, and all people bring their expertise to the table on YouTube, Facebook, and different social medias. What I'm primarily trying to do, the most important thing to start with for you, if you want to be more aware, understand your survival mode, understand why you do what you do, then this is the work I feel very happy and privileged doing. And I use myself as an example. 30, 40 years on, when I became aware that the voice in my head wasn't who I was, when I realized that I could change some of the ways I thought about myself, the way I treated myself, and consequently when threatened, treated other people, which was quite harshly. I would punish myself so other people had to be punished, and a punishment would be withholding talking to them. The silent treatment, it used to be called. And that wasn't to be horrible. It was because I was looking after me. I thought I was. My stress levels would go up as there was potential danger, just like an animal. So the animal senses there's danger. And if somebody came and started being horrible to me, then I would go into my defense mode as a form of being aware that there was stress, there was danger. Then I'd say to myself, right, what are you going to do, Sue? Are you going to just freeze and say nothing? Are you going to step back and hide? These are all protection methods. Or am I going to attack because I feel attacked? Am I going to defend myself by a bit like a game of chess, if you like? So all of these things, because I didn't know any different, was the way I lived. I'm a very caring, warm, loving, tactile person. Some of those ways were so that people wouldn't hurt me. And so being a very sensitive soul, which is a beautiful quality, don't ever deprive yourself of that beautiful quality. Don't, if people say you're too this, you're too the other, just stop. In whose opinion? And if you're still struggling because you are listening to the voices in your head that are saying, oh, they're right, then you're on the slippery slope. So you're not looking after you. So we have to learn to stop being a reactor to other people's behavior. And that's what a lot of people do in life. So instead of being proactive, they are just somebody who stands by, and you're a reactor. So even the most aggressive people who are, you would think, oh, don't get close to them, don't get near them, don't upset them. Somebody who's a reactor, who's aggressive, that's because they feel threatened and they do not want to go to the place where they feel vulnerable. So they've learned tactics of having a go at you, protecting their ego, which is the voices, the programming, and they think that's who they are. And if that's what works for you, and if that's where you're up to in life, absolutely not a problem. I'm not suggesting you do anything other than think about, how's your life? Is it working for you? Are you able to be kind and loving and compassionate to yourself? And therefore, that's this unconditional love from the soul that it's a rock you can live your life in. And the unconditional love, the energy, was our birthright. And so that's solid, and you're there for yourself. So what's your relationship like with you? If you don't live your life like that, because that's not your understanding, then think about when you say, I feel a bit low in spirits. It's not wooey stuff, it's just the reality. So if you feel a bit low, the weather you feel a bit low, and you need to feed yourself with love. And think about colours. Colours can lift you on a day when it's really, dull. There's not much colour in the sky. There is lots of beautiful shades of black and white and grey. And then there's no sun coming through. We know it's above that. Then think about your own moods inside. That energy is in there. It's there, ready to shine. It's ready for you to connect to. That sunshine inside, the unconditional love, that soul, that spirit, it's there. And so if the day is dull, and this is interesting, I find, that when it's rainy and cold, people wear dark clothes. Whereas you can put some sunshine into your day and other people's day by creating that illusion of sunshine. So next time you think about buying something, a raincoat or anything to protect you against the elements, think twice before you get a dark colour. And if you say, oh, I don't want bright colours, ask yourself why. What makes you think you don't want bright colours? And you'd be amazed the sort of answers you get from this programming, this belief system that you have traded into. Oh, no, I don't like bright colours. Well, that's interesting. Is that true? Is what you're telling yourself true? Or is it something that you've just always believed? Something that somebody told you? So it's a possibility that you could risk choosing a different colour the next time you go and buy any sort of clothes. You know, take one little step forward and think about it. And if somebody says to you when you've got a different colour on, because this is whether people's approval or opinions still matter to you, and that somebody might say, oh, I'm not used to seeing you in those colours with a tone. I just used a tone. You could trip straight into, there you are, I knew it was a mistake. See, they don't like it. They don't approve of it. And because that's the biggest, the ego, this 24/7 chatterbox, we've been following it for so long, for whatever reason, that we think, oh, they're right, or what you think is right, and you never ever risk doing something new. Well, that's not the greatest way to live. Taking healthy risks, making different choices is something that will open up your life. And if by taking a risk it doesn't work, then you can go back to the way you've been used to doing things, which is, this is what I do, this is what I'm going to do. We call it, this is who I am. We call it a habit. They're words. They are words. So I am now going to put my glasses on. I'm going to pop in my website address. I'd love you to go and have a look on the website. There's lots of hundreds. There's free videos, there's short ones, there's rocking chair lives. There's programs of different things that you can listen and learn from. Why do I do this? Who am I? I'm Sue Gaskell-Barlow, named, and I do this because I can. I love giving back, and what happens is that people all over the world, one person can just say, Sue, you don't know me. I live in America. And I was listening to you live, feeling quite low, because my mum, who's in her 80s, is very low and depressed, and I feel helpless. And I listened to you live, and you talked, Sue, about clothes. You talked about your era. I'm 76, and your era. And it made me realise that my mum's era, mum was in her early 80s, that my mum wasn't wearing nice clothes anymore. She had sort of given up. And the things that you said made me realise that instead of feeling helpless, I can actually talk to mum. I can encourage her to maybe buy a little dress. And when she says, what's the point? I'm 80 odd. I can say to her, because life is for living, and I bet it'll make you feel nice. And then I can listen to her way of life. Instead of thinking I know what's right, I can listen to what's happening in my mum. Now, when I got that message and that lady said, you know, it has made a difference, no money could buy the feeling of well-being when you know that what you're doing is making a difference to maybe one person. And maybe that one person is you listening now. So that's why I ask you to share my lives. I'm going to now write the website. There isn't anybody, as I can see, viewing at the moment. Doesn't mean that no one is viewing. It's my curiosity. So if you listen to this live, and would you leave a comment? Would you subscribe to my YouTube channel, my Facebook channel, Instagram, and have a look at the website, which is what I'm popping down now. Have to focus. I'm a one-man band, and I don't want to make a mistake. Remember a Zen Buddhist saying, It's brilliant there. Let's just see if that's www.seusuniversityoflifenz. So if you can log into that, and remember, as Zen Buddhist, there is one person now that has found me. Welcome. And that saying was, we're not able to all do great things. We can all do one thing with goodness and greatness. So focus on whatever job you're doing. Doesn't matter what it is. Focus on the job that you're doing and do it with love. Give it your full attention, and that can be absolutely anything. And that's why I said I'm going to focus on writing this down, aware that might mean that you're going to leave. And I've written it down, it's there, and that gives me a feeling of satisfaction. I'm a high achiever, so I've achieved that. And for a while, my achiever is satisfied with little things. Don't have to do great things to have that sort of satisfaction. Okay, so what I'd like to now go on to, and if any questions come in, I'll follow them happily. Can you see this book, how well worn it is? It's falling to bits. And it's a book written by John Powell. Why am I afraid to tell you who I am? And this is the back cover, because it was £3.99 way back. I've been reading this for 30 years. And John Powell was a psychiatrist, psychologist, and a counsellor who wrote this book from all of the people that came to him over decades. And here's the write-up. I am afraid to tell you who I am because I may not like. I am afraid to tell you who I am because you may not like who I am. And it's all that I have. When we reach maturity as people communicating with each other, there is no other way. What is it in me that grows smaller if I do not tell you my secrets? This book shows that the courage to tell you who I am can be developed, and openness about our emotions, an understanding of the roles we play in life, and how we defend ourselves from an ego. This is an awareness that new psychological games are possible, that we do play them, and that all of these can help in learning towards our own liberation and with love. So this book is full of so much information, tells of all the roles we play and why we do that. You might be a practical joker. You might be somebody who laughs and jokes as soon as something gets remotely serious, because that's your way of protecting yourself from any potential danger, from anyone getting to know you, and most of all, from you learning to go inside and trusting to find out who you are. People don't want to do it. People are too scared because it's painful. And that pain that you're running away from, that you're protecting yourself from, might have happened decades ago. And you've still made a choice to choose to make a joke of everything so everybody will like you, and it keeps you from ever having to face the pain. And this is what I can say. If you can face the pain and just stay with it and just understand that that was something that happened a long time ago, that you're still traumatized by it, and therefore you don't want to look at it. With careful and professional help, people who do know what they are talking about, they have qualifications and life's experiences, you can gently reevaluate and change something that's traumatizing still you to having had a trauma that you as an adult can now handle. You as an adult can deal with this, because it's usually the child inside that settles emotionally for being about 10 years of age. So for instance, if something happened, I think this is a reasonable example, something happened when you were little and you've blocked it away, which is absolutely your choice, and yet every time something happens, you have a mental block because you haven't healed that part of yourself. So a typical example was, for me, anytime it came to a test at school, I didn't know the answer, I was told off. I wasn't allowed to ask questions in exams. I was off school a lot, so I didn't do catch up. There wasn't help there. It's not poor on me, it's just factual, and it's not a blame thing. So that what happened to me when it came to me taking exams when I was in my 20s, I just froze. My mind went to blank. It's like I knew nothing. I'd regressed to that little girl that was probably feeling traumatized, been told off. When I went to take my driving test in my 30s, because I didn't think I'd be able to drive a car, no matter what anybody else could do, I couldn't, because of this low self-esteem, this lack of looking after myself and believing in myself. So it took me 3 times. And on the 3rd time, when I passed my driving test, because the first 2, well, my mind just went a blank on the questions. When somebody was saying something to me, the instructor, if he had a tone of voice, mental blank again. So the 3rd time I changed my instructor, I changed the type of car, and somehow I got through the test. And when he said, the driving instructor said, "You've passed. I'm satisfied that you feel competent to drive." What do you think I did? I said, "Oh, I'd been given," I don't know how to explain how that felt. You'll know with things that have happened to you. Do you know what I did next? I said, "Can I give," and I didn't even ask, I gave him a hug. So there you go, and that made him smile. It makes me smile still. So then I've learned, I've passed the test, I've broken all of those barriers because I'd started looking at, why do you do this? It's like asking an 8-year-old or a 10-year-old to drive the car when you regress to that emotional issue of brain fog or mind going like a rabbit in the headlights. So then once I'd got my test over, then I went out and genuinely find out how to drive a car in my way and listening to the rules that are there for a very good reason. So that's just one example. And what's your thoughts on that? As we approach 3/4 of the way through this live, I'm going to just remind you, journal, get your book out, get a book that you like, get a pen that you like, keep those 2 together, the date, the time, the day, the year. And then into this, you don't just record 1 or 2 things. You record your emotions, how you're feeling. You record, if it's to do with eating. If you want to lose weight, I'm a coach. I can coach you because I've got a program in my shop that you can purchase for very little, and you get me coaching with. I've put everything out with a sensible eating plan. They all work, all diets, until you stop following them. So you have to learn, and I coach you through different choices, give you new life skills. So that's really exciting. So whatever it is that you want to do in your journal, so if it's you're watching your eating plan, you don't just record what you've eaten, you record how you're feeling. And here's a simple giveaway, that if you think I'm hungry and you're wanting to lose weight, then don't go to eat for 5 minutes. Journal, write in here, what is it? Why do you want to eat? Are you really hungry, or is it a craving, which is an addiction, which is not hunger? Are you thirsty? There's more things that you can think about. Or is it that you're going to eat, which is your way of coping because something's come up that you don't know how to deal with it? You'll never fill an emotional need or hole with food. So you can put your pen in your good hand, look at all these things, all these nuggets, put your pen in the good hand, write down in your journal, why am I going to eat? Now put the pen in the other hand. Now, because you've got to stop using this so much, because now you're learning how to write with your other hand. So you're having to focus and cut the middleman out, cut that out and focus. And that's what a child does. So now you can write down, how am I feeling? Why am I eating? Am I hungry? And those questions you can answer very slowly. And then you've recorded it. You've got the date, the time, and then you can say to yourself, okay, what choices do I have? So this is just a tiny bit of the coaching I do so that you move forward and you don't have to go on and off diets for the rest of your life. How do I know? Because my book now, these are all in the shop, my book, Eating Your Words, something my sister said to me when I'd not long had a baby and I was in my early 20s. She came to the house and she said, Susan, haven't you put weight on? I'd just had a baby. She came in, it was one of those parties at home that we used to do, Pipperware parties, Tupperware parties, all sorts of different things. A little pun for Shaw, one of my lovely friends in England, Shaw Watson, and Summers. Those are great party things. You get together, you have a chat, you purchase something, you have a great night. And so my sister came in. Now she was my oldest sister, and I looked up to her. She was slim, really slim. There weren't things as calories then. There wasn't even cottage cheese. So she didn't have any children. And that comment she made, the next day, I thought there was something wrong with me. And the next day was the first day of 40 odd years of food ruling my life. Food being the biggest thing in my life. And that was because it had gone straight in. I had an eating disorder as a result, bulimia. I'm self-healed from that a long time ago. I also was almost anorexic. I had certainly food controlled me and caused sadness for people around, I'm sure, because I wouldn't go to places because I'd got to choose something from the menu. So that became a huge fear within me, and obviously, without me knowing, affected people around me. And I then learned and watched myself. That's for another story anyway. I'm suggesting that if you eat because you're not hungry, then there will be a reason for it, and you can work through the issue with someone like myself. Eating Your Words was the play on words for what my sister said. So are you somebody who believes something and psychologically you've taken it on board because you were so hurt by what somebody said? And now, if my sister died a long time ago, if my sister was around now, because of what I understand and know, I would have just quietly have said, yeah, I just had a baby. Come and see me in a month. And of course, I lost the weight very quickly anyway. So the only time I kept any weight on was after having my middle child. So it's just interesting. So the Eating Your Words, or you can get it from me, is here or on Amazon. Then I went to this book and I wrote this second book, My Adventures in Perth, Melbourne and the UK. And it's a book that you could read a chapter, because each chapter is a story in itself. And it's fun, it's a story, and it's a book that's on ebook on my website. And this is on ebook on the website. This is the only copy I've got of A Sense of Time. And this is in 3 parts. This is in 3 parts. And the third part of this is learning a new language. The language of love, not fear. Love, not for fear. So interesting. Those things are in the shop, and the ebooks are, they're so cheap. And people say, I'd love to do something for you, Sue. And I say, well, just buy my ebook. You just pay there, it's simple. You get verification on an email. The book's there, ready to download. Easy peasy. And if you never read it, then that's something you can do for me. And I'm really glad I've got all these ready to show you, because going back to what I said, see, that makes me understand something. I've never given myself credit. I'm actually got another title. I'm a writer. I love words. I write poetry. And it's back to your creativity. What do you want to do with the next part of your life? What is it you want to do with your work? What is it that you're doing that isn't beneficial to the human condition? I'm not going outside of that, other than to say we have a soul, we have energy that we were born with. And as a vulnerable child, that unconditional love was given to us by the adults around us. If it wasn't, we didn't know how to love ourselves or use this love, then we learned to be a certain way so that people wouldn't leave us, people wouldn't shout at us. And so maybe you're living in this ego. Ego is a very important part of us. It's programming. Ego is telling me to do this. All the things I've learned, to do this, to do this, to do this. You learn things. It's the ego that isn't helpful, that the belief system that you're listening to 24/7, that is the thing that we have to look to, the programming. When you want people to like you, when you want people to not get angry, when you need attention, and people say, as an adult, people say, oh, take no notice of him, take no notice of her, is an attention seeker. She just wants attention. Hello? Don't use that as though there's something wrong in wanting attention. Where is the compassion? If somebody always wants attention and they're craving attention, it's because they're not looking after themselves. In the human condition, don't we all strive now to be our best version of ourselves, to love ourselves with that unconditional love as a solid foundation? And when people say things, instead of you thinking they're right, and when people say things and you believe that they're right, you can stay calm. You can be saying under your breath, you're all right, you are. Give yourself a nickname. Find a picture of yourself when you were little and say, hello, sweetheart, every morning. That's inner child work that I do. I do one-to-one coaching. There's groups where different ones online that you can join, and you get me here in the studio with you by the side of me in this magic of StreamYard I use, or Zoom, and then you can talk to me and I can give you new life skills, tools for the toolbox, makeup for the makeup bag. You can use both or not. You can stay doing what you're doing now, and that's the question. How's life working for you? And we who sit here, and this is the important thing for the last bit of the show, Sue Gaskell, Sue's University of Life, here on YouTube and on other social medias. I would love you to share my live. I'd love you to comment, or if it's not possible to comment, then when you see this as a recording, you can put a comment and I'll receive that. So that's what you can do for me. Have a look in the shop, look at the website, subscribe to things. It takes a minute of your time, yes. And I would appreciate that enormously. And if you don't, that's okay. A lot of people are very upset at the moment because there are social medias, and I'm not calling anybody out. It's not a blame thing. Some things are happening, and we haven't got the audience. Artificial intelligence is changing things, and it's here for life. So maybe you do have to go to a little bit of bother to try and find me. And I just know I've got 5 different channels on YouTube. The one that you need to follow is the one where I have 120 subscribers at the moment. It's where this live is going out, unless you know differently, and you can tell me differently. And so the others just focus on this one. That's the picture, me in my blue. Tap on there, tap on YouTube or Facebook, and then subscribe and ring the bell. Bringing my show to a conclusion. This is what I think you can take from this hour. And I do this once a week. And once a week, I say to you, I think you deserve once a week to just refresh, go back to basics, ask yourself, are all areas of my life working? As a coach, there's a circle of 8, and we go through something, and I do work with you to see which area of your life isn't working. Because if it isn't a complete circle and you are still saying, oh, I work so hard and I do this and I do that and nothing seems to be right, and you're still blaming your partner, or you're blaming the government, or you're blaming yourself, you're still in the fear, blame, shame, guilt, control, punishment, and power and control, human language. Well, I have learned to come to the language of love. The language of love starts within, from the self, and you learn to love yourself, everything about you, including your shadow side. You don't judge the feeling of envy. You don't say, oh, I'm not envious. Look at this defensiveness. We can all have a feeling of envy. We just need to understand it. If you don't know what envy is, it might come over as resentment. Resentment has been, my understanding is, unacknowledged envy. Resentment is unacknowledged envy. And when you have resentment, it's because you're giving your power away to somebody. And it's you that has to change. It's never about the other person. If the other person that you're living with or working with, or somebody that they always put you down, then it's for you to see where you're not looking after yourself. It's for you to make changes. It's for you to learn how to say no. It's for you to learn how to put boundaries. The most exciting thing you can do is get yourself a coach. It doesn't have to be me. Get yourself somebody who knows what they're talking about from experience. Are they living a life that you can see is something that is you would like to aspire to? Somebody who's got invisible conditions of illness, they're still out there. They get up, and they're not moaning all the time. And there's a difference between moaning and complaining and wanting to, because that's you're a resenter, and that makes you feel good, dumping all your stuff. See, now you feel better. You've emptied something. There's a huge difference between somebody who complains all the time and somebody who is factual. And if you say, and how are you today? Then you could say, life's wonderful. Life's an adventure. Or you could say, oh dear. Or you could say, well, I'm okay. Thanks for asking. I've got a lot of pain at the moment. And, we just get on with life. Take this away from the language that you need to unlearn and relearn. And I'll say it now very quietly as an example. The word but, B-U-T. B-U-T. Experts on programs like this continually say, you've used the word but. That changes the sentence. And that's about connecting with the child inside, how they feel, and in the moment, and not but, because but is like closing the door. Can't is like closing the door. Don't know is like closing the door. So when people used to say to me, oh, they'd come to the class, I'd welcome them, doesn't matter how many times they'd come. I never said, oh, you're here again. Don't use those words. They are put downs. They are not necessary. It's taking courage for people to do what they're doing. So you could do with going to psychological first aid on what not to say. There is a psychological first aid, and it's incredibly helpful. Again, of course, I've done that, or else I wouldn't be talking about it in that vein. So people would come to me, they would want to lose weight. They'd come to me, they were obviously heavily overweight, some of them. And they'd come to me and say, phew, and there was this attitude. Or they'd come to me and say, oh, can you help me? And of course, both of those, I'm not able to help you. And your attitude won't help you to help me to support you. So I'm not here to help. I'm here to support. If you need my help to get the support for new skills, you've got it. So as you look at that, somebody would come to me and say, oh, I'd love to lose weight. I've got heavy bones. And I'd love to lose weight, but I've got heavy bones. I'd love to lose weight, but I've only got to look at a cream cake and I've put weight on. So I'd love to lose weight, positive, but forget what you've just said. Now that the whole of my energy, my observers listening, I've only got to eat a cream cake and I put weight on. Oh, that's what she wants to do. That's what he wants to do. Now that BUT word, people get so upset with me, and that's up to them. So in the end, you just don't even say it. If you're paying for my services, and I promise you every minute's worth it, then I will focus on and say to you, you've used but 4 times in the last minute. Now, I want you to go home, and this is your homework, and practice and look at every time you use the word but. Just be aware of it. Now you're in awareness. And when you're in the other place, which is your programming, you'll just say it all the time because ego wants you to say it. Fear wants you to do that because fear, the only way fear can survive in you is if you feed it. That's all. These are all our talks that I'm just throwing in there. So take this away with you and remember this. Write in your journal, buy your diary, a book that feels nice, or find one out, your pen, make a commitment for the next 4 weeks and to write all the things I've said. And if you don't know what they are, I'm not going to repeat them again. Listen to this again with a pen and paper because there's lots of things in here. And so every time you notice you say the word but or somebody else, under your breath say and. And then you'll get used to realizing you keep saying but. Now you realize you are. And now you can say to yourself, I really want to choose to change that because this was about choices. So you choose next time to talk a little bit slower. I need to remind myself that. Talk a little bit slower. And then you say, I'd love to lose weight. And cream cakes are something that I have to be aware of. Not beware, that's fear-based. Be aware of. And then I would say, if you were my client, I'd say, okay, you've now given me lots of information in that one sentence, how we can work together. And like I say, the ebooks on the website, in the shop, A Sense of Time, it's called. In the third part of that book, the first part is finding out that Steve has motor neurone disease, my husband. The second part is how I learned to cope with life after the loss. And the third part is changing the fear-based language we use in the English language to a love-based language. And we have to take some words out and put some new words in. So that's in there, and it's worth reading. So that's your choice. And I am delighted to say that we are now on track. I'm very, very comfortable with the content, and there's so much for you to learn from this. And just one more thing. If you want to find me, this is where my lives are going to be in future, YouTube. That's my choice. And I will share them on Facebook. If you want to be live, if you want to join me on my live, talk about your story, no matter what your story is, it'll be fantastic. And you will learn and maybe help somebody else with something that they didn't realize. So whatever you do and wherever you are, remember you are not your behavior. Remember you matter. And most of all, whatever you're doing and wherever you are, if nobody's told you today, then let me be the first person to say that you are wonderful. And you are a wonderful, wonderful, loving soul. Let's just find you so that you can have the best life possible. Bye for now.